ravens count the steps you take. Helheim. Helheim. You came for a story. Now the story keeps you.
A home is supposed to be the safest place you have, but sometimes the most terrifying stories kind of start with something small. A camera going dark, a phone disconnecting, and even a person who simply vanishes.
And when there's blood on the porch, this isn't missing, that's taken.
Authorities released imagery of a masked armed person near the front door area. Investigators have described a tight timeline in the early hours of February 1st, 2026. The doorbell camera was disabled. First, shortly after, the connection between Nancy Guthrie's pacemaker and her phone was interrupted, according to reporting and statements attributed to the sheriff.
Tonight, we're covering the disappearance of Nancy Guthrie, 84, from Catalina Foothills near Tucson, Arizona, and we'll be walking through what's known, what's been reported, the evidence that matters, and the theories people are circulating, clearly separated from the confirmed facts.
Just want to say, as of right now, this isn't concluded. It is ongoing. So everything that we have here is speculation and facts we have confirmed with timelines.
Yeah, it's a very interesting situation. I don't think we've had anything like this for quite some time.
Yeah, just like an ongoing open case where they're actively trying to search, trying to find answers. I don't think we've really done anything like this.
No. So this'll be a fun one. And my apologies. Where are my manners, folks? I was just absorbed in the story, and I forgot to welcome you all back to Tales from Helheim. Now, this is a high-profile, still developing case, as we were saying. That means that we have a responsibility to keep the timeline clean and the claims labeled.
Facts first, then theories, and we're not naming random suspects from the internet.
Exactly. We're not going to be doxing. No harassment, no amateur hunt. If a person is not officially identified by law enforcement and credible reporting, they stay anonymous here.
Also, we're recording this episode as of February 21st, 2026. You will be listening later, so things could have changed, and make sure to check for any official updates. Now, if you don't know who Nancy Guthrie is, she is an 84-year-old and is publicly known as the mother of Today co-anchor Savannah Guthrie. The public attention on this case is intense because of that family connection.
But behind the headlines, she's an elderly woman living her life until the moment someone interfered with it.
The details that matter most in any abduction case are last confirmed sighting, time window, evidence of force, suspect description, and any technology trail. We'll go step by step.
When a case becomes national news, does it help, or do you guys think that it just really leads to noise?
I mean, I feel like it goes both directions because with it being so high profile, there's more official eyes on it, but it would also lead to a lot of speculation and uninvolved people putting in their 2 cents where it doesn't actually have anything backing it up.
Yeah, just to kind of like, oh, I want to be involved. I want to be like, if I throw this out and it turns out to be right, then I'm going to be involved in like the biggest disappearance that Arizona probably seen in a minute.
Yeah, not too much exciting happens out here, and I fully have to agree it's going to be a chaotic mix of both. I mean, as we'll get into, I have my own crazy theories or ideas that I think are fun to kind of think about, in the sense of it gets your mind going as to what if something really could be this twisted or this just insane, but we'll get into that as the time goes on. Or the episode goes on, I should say. But I guess right now, let's lay out the clearest timeline from all the widely reported information.
The broad framework reported across major outlets is Nancy Guthrie was last seen at her home evening of January 31st, 2026. She was reported missing February 1st after she did not attend church or church-related plans as expected. Reporting varies on specific detail, but the key is she failed to show up and people became concerned.
Now, AP reported authorities said her blood was found on the front porch. that's a critical turning point because it moves the case from missing person to suspected abduction.
More detail. Several outlets have cited a timeline where the doorbell camera was disconnected around 1:47 a.m. on February 1st. The pacemaker app connection to her phone showed a disconnect later around 2:28 a.m. This suggests a narrow window in the early morning hours.
Which means whoever did this was active while most of the neighborhood was asleep.
Now, an important nuance is a disconnect in an app doesn't automatically mean someone was physically harmed at that exact minute. But in context, blood on the porch, a disabled camera, a masked person captured on recovered footage, it kind of becomes a strong set of indicators that could lead people to think of that before thinking of the other possibilities that it could be.
I actually did a little bit of technical research on this because pacemakers were super confusing to me. I kind of thought that they actually pumped the heart, but they don't. It kind of stabilizes your heartbeat. So another thing is pacemakers typically communicate with a phone via Bluetooth for data logging. Bluetooth has limited range. So if the phone stays at the house and the person was moved elsewhere, the app connection can actually break. This can help establish a separation timeline, even if it doesn't provide a GPS location by itself. There are other consumer devices that can lock in a timeline like Wi-Fi logs, router connections, smart locks, smart garage doors, neighbors' cameras, car telemetry, and cell tower pings.
Yeah, that's a lot that they can go through and look at. But I think the strangest one to me is the camera. Like,
Yeah.
you would expect the pacemaker to go if it's app controlled because, when the phone's left behind or broken or whatever, that connection's severed, you're not going to see any data there. But I don't know, that camera thing just isn't sitting right. I don't know what you guys feel.
I want to save the speculation for later, but definitely I have a couple theories there.
What about you, Duffy?
I don't know, man. I think everything just kind of failing around the same time. I think that seems, well, like I said, it's going to be speculation for later on, but I don't want to be the one dude to be like, that's all very suspicious. But I honestly, and on this front, I think it is very suspicious. So I will be that dude.
Hell yeah. Be the one for the team. Now, one of the most important developments was actually the recovery of smart doorbell footage.
Reporting from Reuters described how the footage recovery was delayed and technically complex, raising piracy concerns because video was recovered even though the device did not have typical long-term storage subscription. The reporting data said that Google's backend servers required reconstruction.
See, therein lies the double-edged sword. On one hand, thank God the footage exists. On the other, people are realizing just how much data might still be sitting somewhere, even if you didn't pay for storage.
So, Business Insider also reported that Google engineers assisted in recovering the footage and that this became a key lead in the case. But one thing a lot of people don't think about, and this actually gives food for thought for another true horror in life, the fact that everything that is recording video or audio is being saved somewhere for later use against us, even when we're told that's not the case.
Whether you have access to it or not, it's still happening.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
But this becomes a major talking point. For investigators, it can be a lifeline. For privacy, it raises questions about retention, transparency, and what no subscription really means.
So let me play devil's advocate.
Whoa.
Makes perfect sense here in Helheim. Now, I'm just kidding. Y'all know that's not how this place works. But would you rather have more privacy or more recoverable evidence if something happens to you?
I definitely lean towards the privacy and with more independently managed storage.
I feel like it's kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't. Because, we could have the more privacy, but then if something does happen where we need to have more recoverable evidence, and then it's not an option, then we're kind of fucked. But if, say they give us the privacy, but then we never need the evidence, that's kind of is it better to have it and not need it, or need it and not have it?
That's where I was going with the personal responsibility. If I'm going to be recording stuff for my privacy or for my safety, I should be the one managing it. And I would have that responsibility to keep track of it. not give it up to a government agency or whoever.
Yeah, and that's actually what I was going to say is, when you think about it, privacy doesn't mean that that same audio and video isn't recorded, but instead of being without your permission or consent or being saved without your knowledge for whatever purpose that we're unaware of, we have that choice. Like, I mean, look, I have my own basically Google Photos backup server with like 25,000 photos that I keep. I know where they are. Like it's all me. No one else can access them but me. And I know they're safe. I do it with documents. I do it with other stuff. And, I have the same stuff as if I was paying for a subscription. It's just I'm doing it myself.
Yep. It's a pretty smart way to handle that, actually.
It saves on money. And I mean, look, what was it? Apple not that long ago did some changes that were, it could be considered good because it had to do with, we'll say, predators of not old people. And they did it where if you had pictures that the AI assumed were for that purpose, it would flag your account. Now that's a double-edged sword because every parent has at least one picture of their child taking a bath. So what happens if that AI goes through and interprets that as bad and sends it off? And then the next thing you know, you have CPS, you have all this shit just showing up at your house claiming that you're a bad person when it was just a picture of an innocent memory of your child.
I mean, I see the good and bad in that too. Yeah. I mean, the AI that scans everything is managed by somebody somewhere, and everything that they scan, I'm sure, is stored in some way, shape, or form.
I would hope that they have like multi-level of like the AI runs it like 3-4 times to see like if it's the same thing, and then if it keeps coming up that way, like like alert the authorities or have somebody from the authorities like keeping an eye on this, so then it doesn't escalate to something bigger if it's not something bigger.
Yeah, I don't know, man. It's a very interesting topic, but with our current case, authorities released some imagery of a masked and armed person appearing to tamper with the door camera.
Reuters published a video report about images of an armed person at the door. Other outlets described the person as masked and armed, lingering near the front door area and interacting with the camera.
So either they didn't care about being seen or they thought disabling the camera was enough.
FBI later released partial description: a male, approximately 5'9" to 5'10", average build, carrying a black Ozark Trail hiker backpack.
Now, that backpack becomes one of the few concrete consumer clues tied to the suspect.
And it's the kind of detail that helps who bought it, where, when, in what store, on what camera, with what vehicle.
Business Insider and other reporting describe Walmart cooperating by providing purchase reports and video related to the backpack, since the model is sold through Walmart.
If you own this exact backpack, would you stop wearing it in public for a while?
Yes.
I mean, probably.
Yeah, especially
think about
if 5'9".
Yeah, like, do you want to get fucking mistaken for this fucking kidnapper dude and be held? And I mean, look at law enforcement has forced innocent people to confess to something they never even could have been a part of, that evidence later proved they were never a part of, just because they kept pressing and pressing and pressing, and the person finally broke because they were just sick of the shit.
My thing is, I understand that Walmart cooperating is a really good thing, like by providing the records and all that, but what if they didn't buy this backpack like for this specific purpose? What if it was something they've had lying around for years and years and years?
Not only that, people buy the same product like thousands and thousands and millions of times. So what is the realistic chance a common product leads to an ID?
Yeah, that, or like what if they borrowed it from somebody?
I mean, it might be higher than you think if you combine it with video and transaction data, but still, like you said, it could have been purchased years ago. I mean, Ozark is a brand that's been around for like decades.
Not only that, they're a very popular brand.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, there we have some of the, I guess you could say, digital evidence, but now some of the physical evidence.
AP reported that DNA testing showed blood on the porch that matched Nancy Guthrie. That's one of the strongest indicators of force or injury at the scene.
Oh, but wait, because then there are the gloves.
Reuters reported that investigators recovered a glove that resembled the pair worn by the masked prowler, and DNA from that glove failed to match any profile in the national database.
So people hear no match and they think dead end, but it just means the DNA profile isn't in the database.
That's right. Reasons no match happens. The person has never been arrested or required to submit DNA. The profile is partial or degraded. The DNA belongs to someone else, like a secondary transfer, or the sample is mixed.
Now, some reporting indicated that investigative genetic genealogy may be considered or underway after no CODIS hits. That process can take time, though, and it is not guaranteed.
Also, if gloves were worn, that suggests planning or at least an attempt to reduce fingerprints.
I mean, that and the fact that they were obviously tampering with the camera is.
So, I mean, you add all that together, if maybe this was a burglary gone wrong, and if so, why bring gloves and a weapon?
It's true.
Yeah, that leads to a lot of questions that we don't have answers to, unfortunately.
I'm curious about the amount of blood that was found. Because, I mean, at the end of the day, people hurt themselves, and she did live there. So, I mean, who's to say the blood was fresh? I don't think that we have those details.
One, who's to say it was hers? How do we know the person that was there to do the deed didn't get injured?
Well, the blood on the porch was matched to Nancy, but
That's right. So,
she did live there.
yeah, I mean, she could have hurt herself. She could have cut herself. It could be a number of reasons. One of the big things is, though, with all that being disabled, like camera wise and other stuff, how do we know it's not more interesting than we think, which I'll get into after releasing some of this. Now, a major public element in this case is the mention of ransom notes.
AP reported that ransom notes were sent to news outlets and multiple payment deadlines passed.
And that raises the big question, are those notes real?
There are three broad possibilities. We have to keep them separate. Authentic notes from the offender or offenders sent to apply pressure, notes from someone connected to the offenders, but not the offender, or hoax notes from opportunists chasing attention.
Now, in many kidnapping investigations, law enforcement does not confirm authenticity publicly. And that is because that can, 1, validate hoaxers, 2, educate the offender, 3, compromise negotiation strategy, or 4, release details only the offender should know.
And sometimes the ransom part is a smokescreen meant to buy time, cause chaos, or push investigators down the wrong path. But I have a question though. If it's a real ransom, why contact the media instead of the family directly?
And that's a pretty valid question. I feel like if they were trying to actually get money, instead of pushing a timeline out, it would go directly to the family. But media contact will amplify fear and pressure, so it's also atypical in well-organized ransom cases.
Yeah, but also, how do we know it's not a panic move because they were going into this expecting to fail and didn't have that well of a plan thought out?
I mean, it could be that, but I mean, he seemed like he came very prepared for what he was trying to do. And with the media basically pushing this out, because like I said, when I first heard about this, it was playing like over and over and over on like different channels because it's a big thing.
Feels premeditated, that's for sure.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. And then like the police, I don't know if they have any leads, but I feel like maybe pushing it out to the media was a premeditated thing to like, oh, I want like more notoriety so I can get like ask more money maybe.
It's possible too.
Yeah, it's hard to say, but this case also does include a rare public conflict narrative, and that would be interagency tension.
Reuters reported that U.S. law enforcement officials said the sheriff was blocking the FBI from access to key evidence, potentially impairing federal assistance. People magazine also summarized the sheriff responding to claims about evidence access.
And this is where conspiracy brains start to go wild.
But before we leap to conspiracies, we should name a normal explanations. There's jurisdiction and control. There's chain of custody protocols. Lab preference, like if they want to use a private lab versus a federal lab. Public messaging strategy, and a simple ego to under the national spotlight.
Now, KJZZ reported the sheriff has struggled to control the public narrative under the intense attention, and that some investigative decisions and public appearances drew a lot of criticism.
Here's the truth, though. When the spotlight is that hot, every decision looks suspicious.
I mean, I could see it going either way. Either maybe the sheriff wanted to keep it under, so like their jurisdiction didn't look that bad, or unfortunately, when you get those kind of personalities, realistically, it becomes a little bit of a pissing match. Like this is my case. I'm the one doing this. We've all seen the movies where that becomes a thing. I feel like that's pretty close to reality.
Yeah, I'm the bad mama pajamba.
I'm gonna solve this.
Yeah, well, I mean, hopefully they are able to, because one of the most unusual elements in public reporting is the pacemaker timeline and the idea of tracking signals.
The Washington Post reported digital forensics experts discussing how the pacemaker transmitted data via Bluetooth to the phone, and that pacemakers may still attempt to transmit even if separated from the mobile device.
CBS News reported law enforcement sources saying a device that could detect signals emitted from the pacemaker, sometimes described as a signal sniffer, which is technology that was among the tools investigators were using.
That sounds like sci-fi, but it also sounds like hope.
Important boundaries. This does not mean the pacemaker is a GPS tracker. Detection range and feasibility depend on the device type, frequency, environment, and deployment. If a signal can be detected, it might help narrow down a search area, but it's not a magic pin on the map.
I mean, if you were the offender and you heard police might track a pacemaker, what would you do?
It would definitely change the offender's behavior. That's why investigators often keep technical capabilities quiet. But before the pacemaker information was leaked, I feel like if they know how it works, maybe drive around a couple neighborhoods with the phone and try and see if you pick it up, narrow it down that way.
It could be possible, but who's to say? We don't know much about the offender. I mean, well, we do know a little bit, so now we talk offender profile carefully, not accusations, just plausible categories that fit known patterns.
Based on reported facts, masked individual, gloves, weapon, disabled camera, potential ransom messaging, there's several offender type buckets. So we got bucket A. It's a burglary/home invasion with escalation. Basically, the offender enters expecting property theft. Confrontation occurs. The older resident wakes up and surprises him, and the offender uses force and removes a witness. Bucket B, there is a targeted abduction for ransom. The offender believes the victim's family has money or influence, which makes sense because of who her daughter was. The ransom note element points here, but authenticity is unknown. Then there's bucket C, personal grievance or an obsession. Less evidence publicly supports this, but many abductions involve a personal connection. Reporting suggests family members were cleared as suspects, but that does not rule out other personal ties. And lastly, bucket D. It's just an opportunistic predator. Elderly targets are seen as vulnerable. This bucket can often overlap with the burglary side, so they could be related.
And that's the ugly reality. The simplest motive stealing can still lead to the worst outcome if the offender panics.
Yeah, that is true. But you never know how that stuff's going to be taken. Now, in this whole thing, you might wonder about searches. They can be massively early and then shift to a smaller task force once no new leads emerge.
Reporting indicates hundreds of personnel have been involved. Media reports have also discussed the possibility of search transitioning into a more focused model if tips don't pan out.
And that's not giving up, it's triage.
There's a lot of common reasons that leads will dry up. There's no clear vehicle information, there's camera gaps, there's delayed evidence recovery, the offender will blend into normal patterns, and the tip overload will take time to sift through.
Now we're entering speculation zone. None of this is confirmed unless we say it is. And this is where we kind of discuss the what ifs that listeners will see online, and we keep it responsible.
No naming private people, no my cousin said, no witch hunts.
We'll rank theories by plausibility, not by how cinematic they are. Theory 1, with high plausibility, was the burglar gone wrong. It fits because the disabled camera, the gloves, the weapon, the forced abduction indicators. But the weakness in that theory is that ransom notes to media are unusual for a simple burglary scenario, unless they're hoaxes or misdirection. Theory 2 was the targeted ransom attempt. It fits because of the existence of purported ransom notes, but with deadlines passing without clear proof of life or the unusual routing of notes, it kind of falls a little bit by the wayside. There's also the possibility that there were multiple offenders, because the ability to control an elderly victim and manage a scene quickly would be kind of difficult for one person potentially. But there's also public suspect imagery that may only show one person. But the absence of evidence is not the evidence of absence. Theory 4 was the inside access conspiracy. Why people believe it is because it was reported interagency friction and narrative control criticism. But the reality check is that friction can be bureaucracy and protocol, not just corruption. Another theory is organized crime or the cartel narrative. Arizona as a location is pretty heavy with that type of stuff. It's also very fear-mongering and leads to sensational media, but there's no credible official confirmation in major reporting suspects as a cartel conclusion. So we treat this as an internet-level speculation unless authorities will say otherwise. Lastly, with the lowest plausibility, staged evidence or a deliberate misdirection by a sophisticated actor. Why it spreads is the unusual tech angles, like the doorbell recovery, the pacemaker timeline, and media pressure. But sophistication is often overstimulated or overestimated. Many crimes look strategic when they're simply chaotic.
Conspiracy is easy because it makes the world feel explainable, but a messy crime can be messy without being a movie plot.
So, I think we'll leave speculation here because facts matter. And until there's an arrest and charges, the truth stays behind the evidence. Now, we always end cases like this with something useful.
Some home safety, practical things to keep in mind. So make sure your doorbell camera has a working retention plan, or at least know what it does without one. Add a second camera with a different angle. Use motion lighting. Secure your Wi-Fi router credentials and keep the firmware updated. Consider a check-in plan for elderly relatives. If they don't respond by a certain time, you call them immediately.
And for families, don't wait. If something feels wrong, treat it like an emergency, not an inconvenience.
Also, how to report tips responsibly. If you have footage, don't post it online first. Send it to investigators. Also, don't accuse neighbors or suspicious strangers without proof. And lastly, give time window and exact location and what you saw, plus any original files if you have any. Now, this case is terrifying because it strikes the idea of home as sanctuary, and because the victim is vulnerable, an elderly woman, it's in a quiet neighborhood, a short time window, and a suspect who blended into the dark.
If you're listening with your stomach tight, you're not alone. This is the kind of case that makes you call your mom, your dad, your grandma right now.
We'll update the case if and when there are arrests, charges, or confirmed developments. Till then, facts over rumors.
Now, if you guys would like a follow-up episode, let us know. We can do like timeline reconstruction, maybe a modern forensics, or like a ransom notes and negotiation psychology. Let us know which one you'd like to hear. But for now, until next time, we'll see you in Helheim.
Bye.
They followed you out.